So most people are still using Claude like a toy. They open it, ask random questions, maybe generate some content, maybe summarize something, and then they wonder why other people seem to be getting 10 times more value out of AI than they are. But the difference here is not the AI. The difference is the quality of the workflows and the quality of the prompts. And honestly, most people are still in beginner mode. So in this video, I'm going to show you 5 advanced Claude prompts that I use constantly in my business that go way beyond the basic productivity. And these are all the way strategic prompts. They are decision-making prompts, revenue prompts, positioning prompts. And they're the prompts that make Claude feel less like a chatbot and more like an operator sitting inside your company, a highly qualitative operator. And these are especially useful if you are a consultant, a business owner, a marketing person, a creator, or somebody trying to build leverage without hiring a giant team. So the first prompt is called the Ego Destroyer. This one is dangerous, but in a good way, because it forces clarity. See, most business owners are surrounded by agreement. Employees don't want to challenge them. It's a known fact. Clients won't tell them the truth. Friends are too nice. So what happens? You end up operating inside your own assumptions for way too long. So this prompt fixes that. And here is the exact prompt. Act as a brutally honest CEO advisor with expertise in a scaling business. Analyze my current strategy, identify my blind spots, weak assumptions, bottlenecks, and biggest strategic mistakes. Then give me 3 higher leverage alternatives and explain which one you would choose and why. Now, that's an extensive prompt, but this prompt is unbelievable for pricing, for offers, for hiring decisions, lead generation strategy, product launches, and even YouTube content strategy. And the important thing here is that you're forcing Claude into more of an adversarial role instead of a supportive role. Most people accidentally train AI to agree with them. If you go to ChatGPT, you'll get a lot of that. But you know what? That's useless. You want pressure testing. You want pushback, actually. You want your thinking to be totally challenged. Now, sometimes Claude will point out things that are painfully obvious after you see them, but completely miss them because you were too close to the problem. A very common scenario. And I've used this for client acquisition strategy. I've used it for restructuring offers, narrowing positioning, even deciding what projects not to pursue. And honestly, that alone can save you months of wasted effort. Now, the second prompt is called the Money Chiropractor. Yep, this one is incredibly valuable if you sell anything online, because most offers are weak, they're vague, they're overloaded, or plain confusing. Business owners think they have a traffic problem when they actually have an offer clarity problem. So here's the prompt. Think about this. Analyze this offer like a world-class direct response marketer. Identify weaknesses in positioning, perceived value, differentiation, risk reversal, pricing psychology, and emotional appeal. Rewrite the offer to make it clearer, more compelling, and easier to say yes to. Now, this is a ridiculously powerful prompt because Claude is actually very good at identifying unclear messaging patterns. I'll paste in the landing page too. I'll paste in the webinar pitch, sales email, and even just rough bullet points. And Claude will immediately show where the friction is. And sometimes the problem is too many ideas. Sometimes the promise is weak. Sometimes the audience is too broad. Specificity is important. And sometimes the language sounds corporate instead of emotional. And what's crazy is that small positioning changes can completely change conversions. One sentence can change how the entire offer feels. One reframed headline, it can suddenly make the value obvious. This is really why great marketers obsess over positioning. And Claude can help you, and Claude can help you get there dramatically faster if you prompt it correctly. All right, we're moving along. The third prompt is called the FBI Negotiator. Yes, this is probably one of the highest ROI prompts in this entire video because business owners are usually terrible at articulating what customers are actually thinking emotionally. They describe demographics instead of internal conversations. A very common problem. But buyers make decisions emotionally. We know this. Emotionally first and logically second. We're all humans. We all do this. So here's the prompt. Act as my ideal customer and describe their fears, frustrations, desires, big, objections, and hidden motivations around this problem. And then explain what messaging would make them trust me immediately. Immediacy is important as well. Now, this is gold for ads, for landing pages, YouTube hooks. YouTube hooks, very important. But for webinars and for sales calls, really all of it, because once you understand the internal language of the customer or client or patient, depending on the industry, your marketing gets dramatically easier, actually. And Claude will often surface objections you may have forgotten about entirely. Very likely. I've been there. And fear of wasting money, fear of looking stupid, fear of making the wrong decision, fear of complexity, fear of change. And once you see these emotional patterns clearly, your messaging improves fast. And one thing that I have learned over the years in marketing and sales, especially in the marketing area, is that the best copywriters are really just pattern recognizers. They understand emotional psychology better than everybody else. And Claude can actually accelerate that process massively if you feed it enough context. Think about what's going on in your prospect's mind at that time. Very powerful. Now, the fourth prompt is called the business colonoscopy. Yep, a weird name, but you'll remember it because this is one insanely useful if you feel busy all the time, but your output is really not matching the effort. And most businesses do not have a motivation problem. They have a systems problem. And most founders are too buried in daily operations to see the bottlenecks clearly. And that's ongoing. So let's get into it. Here's the prompt. Analyze my workflow, responsibilities, tools, and recurring tasks. Identify the biggest bottlenecks, the time drains, redundancies, and low leverage activities. Then recommend automation opportunities, delegation opportunities, and workflow simplifications with the highest ROI. That is big. And this prompt becomes extremely powerful when you give Claude real information. And that could be through your calendar, your recurring tasks, your software stack, your tech stack, your operational flow, your weekly schedule. And then Claude starts identifying patterns. This pattern matching is insane when you think about the technology, and it'll call out things you should stop doing entirely. Tasks you should automate, meetings you shouldn't even be attending. Love the meetings, right? But there's some you shouldn't be attending. Manual work that should be already systematized. And one of the biggest mindset shifts in business is realizing that productivity is not about working harder. It really is about removing friction. The highest leverage operators are usually not doing more. They're eliminating more. And Claude is surprisingly good at identifying operational inefficiencies once you give it enough context. Definitely want to feed it enough juice, so to speak. All right, we are moving along. The fifth prompt is called the Genius Translator. This one is incredibly useful if you have expertise but struggle to explain things simply and persuasively. Experts often make terrible marketers because they overcomplicate everything. Been there too. They use insider language. They assume too much knowledge. They bury the value. So here is the prompt. This is the fifth and final one. Take this complex idea and rewrite it so a smart business owner instantly understands the value. Keyword instantly. The emotional impact and the practical outcome as well. And use simple language, strong analogies, and persuasive clarity. This is incredibly powerful for YouTube scripts, webinar pitches, landing pages, sales messaging, socials posts, and client communication. One of the hardest things in business is compressing complexity into clarity. And clarity scales, confusion does not. So the businesses making the most money are often not the most smartest, technically. They're clearest in the communications. And Claude, again, is very good at simplification if you explicitly tell it what outcome you want. And this matters even more now because attention spans are collapsing. If people don't understand what you do and what you say quickly, you lose them. So that prompt that we just closed basically turns Claude into a translation engine between expertise and persuasion. So here's the bigger picture most people are missing right now. The future of AI is probably not going to come from asking better random questions. It's going to come from building repeatable cognitive systems. And that's a real shift happening right now. And the people getting massive leverage from AI are creating frameworks, workflows, and prompt systems and prompt engineering that remove friction from thinking, writing, decision-making, positioning, operations, and execution. So that's why I think most people are still dramatically underestimating tools like Claude AI. There's a lot of features in the Claude AI system. They're still treating it like a novelty instead of an operational infrastructure. And honestly, we're still very early. Most business owners still haven't developed a repeatable AI workflow at all. They're dabbling. Dabbling is fine to start, but you need to get more serious here. Meanwhile, other people and your competitors are quietly building businesses with far less overhead, faster execution, faster iteration, and dramatically more leverage than ever before. It's an exciting time. So if you want, I can also do a follow-up here, another video where I show the exact Claude setup that I use every day, my favorite prompt chains, or how I combine Claude with automation tools to remove entire categories of work from my week. If you want, subscribe and you'll get more videos like this. And by the way, I love your comments and likes. And definitely let me know inside here which prompt you actually are going to try first. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Go do it.